Hello there. Welcome to this episode of Force Ghost Conversations. This is your host, Anthony King, and this week I am going to take a deep dive look into Andor Episode 6, titled The Eye. Before we get started, I'm inviting you to join the conversation with us. We can be found on Twitter at Force Ghost Pod. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok just by searching Force Ghost Conversations. We look forward to connecting with you on those platforms. Also, please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your listening site of choice. Finally, please be sure to check out our TeePublic store to buy some Force Ghost Conversations merchandise. And without further ado, it is time to gather around the campfire for some Force Ghost Conversations. All right, everyone, welcome back to another installment of Force Ghost Conversations. And before we get into the spoiler talk of Andor Episode 6, let's do a quick run-through of some of the news that has taken place around the Star Wars and Lucasfilm galaxy over this past week. And although there isn't a whole lot to discuss, there's some cool new information that I want to share with you all. So first, New York Comic Con, as you know, did take place last week. And while there was a lot of High Republic news that we covered in last week's episode, ironically, after we finished recording, there was another panel about Lucasfilm publishing, and it led to a litany of new Star Wars books and comic announcements. So in 2023, we will have the release of Inquisitor, Rise of the Red Blade by Delilah S. Dawson. The story will feature Iskat, a Jedi survivor of Order 66 that turns to the dark side, joining the Inquisitors with the hope of uncovering the truth about her past. Now that sounds great, and I can't wait to dive into that one because the Inquisitors are a very fascinating group, and particularly after seeing Kenobi, I want to know more about their inner workings. Also, fan favorite character Sana Starros, who you may recall in the Star Wars main comic line from a few years back as being someone that was kind of Han's wife for a hot minute, which wasn't really a thing, but legally we'll see how that plays out. But technically they were married kind of, but weren't married, so don't look at that too much. She will have her own comic book miniseries, which is written by Justina Ireland, who's one of our favorite authors in the King household, who has done a lot of work in the High Republic series thus far. So definitely looking forward to that one. That comic will hit shelves in February of 2023. And finally, in April 2023, Star Wars, The High Republic, The Lightsaber Collection will be released. This reference book will focus on the Jedi weapons of the High Republic era. So if you've been following along with the High Republic, I know Phase 2 just started a couple weeks ago. So perfect time to jump on board since that is a prequel to Phase 1. So you won't be left out by any stretch. Now's the time to hop on. And this book seems like it'll be a great reference material in order to discern the different types of weapons, lightsabers, all the cool imagery that you read about. Now you'll be able to put some pictures to all those terms and phrases that you may come across. So definitely worth checking out. And with that, folks, that is all the Cloud City gossip that we had for this week. On the other side of this break, we will be back with our discussion on Andor, Episode 6. All right, it's time to get into our Episode 6 discussion of Andor. We've officially hit the halfway mark of the season, and this also Episode 6 affectionately concludes this basically 3-episode arc that was Episode 4, 5, and 6 of this series. And again, it was directed by Susanna White and written by Dan Gilroy, who also wrote and directed the preceding 2 episodes, keeping it almost in like a will of a Clone Wars arc from the animated series Star Wars, the Clone Wars, or even its own basic mini movie, if you will, with each episode being 45 minutes or so, right? clear beginning, middle, and end act structure here. And this is the third act, very action packed, lots of tension, great pacing all around. A really, really well done episode that rewards those that have been watching intently from both the start and from episodes 4. It's a really well done job of condensing this story arc into clear 3-act structure, which is really well done on behalf of the team here. So we're getting into the spoiler territory here, folks. You know the drill. If you haven't seen the episode, what are you doing? Pause this episode now. Go check out the episode 6 of Andor on Disney Plus, and then come right back to this point in time. Everything after this is spoiler discussion. You are forewarned. Now, I wanted to talk first about the title of the episode. It's called The Eye, right? Of course, that is a literal reference to what takes place in the episode, with it being the eye of Aldhani, which has been forecasted or at least discussed at length in previous episodes of this series. Look, this is why they're doing the heist at this time, is because this wonderful, majestic event is going to take place over basically like a meteor shower that is colorful, will take place above the area where the Imperial base is, which is also on the sacred land of the Dani people. So that is literally why the episode is called that, 'cause it's going to be a big focal point of everything that takes place here. However, in a metaphorical standpoint, there's double entendre for the meaning, I think, here of the title. Technically, this is the eye before the storm, if you will. I mean, Luthen's definitely hedging his bets on this being like a seminal moment of the rebellion in the fight against the Empire. The eye before the storm is usually like the quietest part of like a hurricane, right? And I know probably many of us have experienced this at some point in our lives, where this is a really interesting phenomenon where it's super quiet, there's calm in a way, and then everything else takes place after that, right? So it's like almost like a clear threshold point in the story of the rebellion that this activity really is on Aldhani here. So very interesting to think about that from that lens and that perspective going into the episode, and maybe we'll see beyond, since this is literally the halfway point of the season. And I also want to start by saying that the outfits that this heist group start with at the beginning of the episode and what they wear look so dang cozy. I mean, it falls right in line with the point of this podcast. Cozy Star Wars, right? I hope you're all cozy at home or work or on the way to someplace or just hanging out. Maybe you're taking a walkabout. But thank you for having us be part of your day, and I hope that is a cozy listening experience for you all. Now, the episode does start with a great conversation between Nemec and Cassian, and I think it's really neat. It's an interesting way to really start the episode. Nemec is certainly struggling with the jitters of pre-heist activity or engagement. You know, it's very understandable, especially he seems like he's younger, very idealistic, and doesn't have necessarily the experience of these types of activities before. So clearly, you know, walking the walk is certainly different than talking the talk, which is something that he is certainly capable of doing, writing his manifesto, speaking at length to understanding the Empire and their atrocities. His belief in the cause is unquestioned, but again, doing something and talking about it are completely different things. I think Cassian's experience in general, not necessarily in heists overall, but just his experience in life at this point, is pivotal to how he's staying calm through this endeavor. And it's also something I think that the group solely needed, as his presence definitely goes a long way to stabilize the group's emotions. And again, right now, this group of rebels is certainly insignificant to the Empire, and perhaps that will change once the heist is complete. Again, alluding back to the eye comments that I made earlier. So we get to meet Commandant J-Hold, who's the, if you will, the leader of this, definitely Lieutenant Gorn's boss, and overall commandant of this dam base on Aldhani. He's surely condescending and racist towards the Dani people in his discussion earlier on here with Colonel Pettigar. He loves gloating about how he's manipulated and controlled them over the last decade. He talks about their stench and downplaying them as less than people. They plan to use the Donnie people as forced labor for their new base that's going to be built over their sacred valley, and this is the last time that they'll be allowed up to on their sacred valley to see the eye. And both the Commandant and the Empire just continue to dig their own hole within their hubris and dislike of others that'll be used against them later on. We then learn why both Taramin, and Cinta are a part of this group. Taramin was a former stormtrooper, we learn, and Cinta's family was executed by stormtroopers. Now, I wonder if Taramin was a part of the squad that did that to her family. It's kind of implied a little, but I could be mistaken. So, don't take that with a grain of too literally, but it could be something to think about as how it plays out to the group. Certainly, I will say too that in addition to the cozy outfits that Cassian and team were wearing earlier on, the outfits of the Donnie locals are also very cozy, super cozy, if you will, too. One would certainly stay warm with that fur vest that their leader dons. I mean, come on, who wouldn't want that? And meanwhile, the eye too has begun to reveal itself over Aldani. I can say it is certainly a spectacle, and I can't wait for the whole thing to commence later on. And let me tell you too, I also laughed super hard at the subtle joke in reference to Commandant J-Hole while trying to dress himself with his sash slash belt, if you will. His wife or wherever partner, something with his party is his family. Perhaps she says, perhaps you've expanded as he has difficulty in putting this item on. And let's just say that the Commandant doesn't take too well to that. I think it's a good reference to Cassian's statement in the earlier episodes about them being fat and satisfied in regards to the Imperials. The family overall does not seem to care for Aldani and is looking for any way to get away from this planet and probably to a more civilized planet, quote unquote, in their eyes. The Donnie people, on the other hand, also do not have any love for the Empire. Their leader quips back with, "May the eye stay open long enough to find some good within you," as he responds back to Lieutenant Gordon's pleasantries upon their arrival to their pilgrimage site. These people have certainly suffered under the Empire, and they know that too. They're clearly not dumb about this, the way that the Empire makes them out to be. And I hope that they are able to reclaim some of their land back after this heist. Perhaps not. Maybe the Empire tightens their grip. Certainly, that's certainly a possibility. But one can dream. I like how they burn the peace offering that the Empire offers ceremonially as soon as they depart. They can keep their peace offering. We don't want any part of this. Speaking of which, the heist is now underway, and Cassian and team are in their Imperial uniforms and are alongside Lieutenant Gorn at the sacred site. Cassian's squad has been tasked with escorting the Commandant during the evening, while Vel and Cinta are in a different place, traveling underwater around the dam. It is really cool to see visually, personally. The tension as they climb up into the dam to assume their positions is certainly real. They place some charges that will disrupt the Imperial communications during the heist. And later, in a very cool Mission Impossible-esque move, they bungee jump down from the dam once more once they have those communications disrupting charges in place. Now, the heist fully starts when the Commandant, the Colonel, and his family are trapped in the holding room. Cinta comes in quickly while there's a little kerfuffle. They don't start off so hot in this. They waste a lot of time screwing around, talking to each other about trying to get each other to getting the Commandant especially to cooperate. And of course, the Colonel takes out a blaster and says, we'll take you out, right? You won't get away with this. Well, then Cinta comes in at the right time and takes out the Colonel before he stalls too long. And I will also say that the slap that Taramin gives to the Commandant is also hysterical. There's a lot of acting done in that sequence that I think is pretty comedic overall. The team gives Commandant J-Hold a choice. He can either cooperate and everyone lives, particularly his family, or they all die. It's pretty simple. He goes down to the payroll vault while the comms go out. except for, unfortunately, the one line that Cassian and team are using, which may be a plot point later on. Just saying that, saying that now. Put a pin in that one. Now, I can't be the only one who thought that they were just stealing a payroll ledger of how much people made, right? Like, I can't be the only one who thought about that when they said just we're stealing payroll. I would have never put two and two together until this episode that it actually meant like stealing money. But that is cool too, and it's great to have more money for the rebellion. Luthen will surely be pleased. Now, I like how they force the guards at the payroll vault to load up the ship, right? They're not doing the handiwork here. They even get the Commandant J-Hold involved in the process, and I don't think he's done physical activity in quite some time. Clearly, as he can't even get his sash on without extra assistance. I will say though, uh, my mind immediately went to the fear that too much is going well for the group. Any heist film that you've ever watched, or TV show, book, comic, something always goes wrong. It never goes according to plan, exactly right. And my fears do come to pass eventually. Remember we talked about that one communication line that is still open? Well, Corporal Kisme leads a group of troopers down to the vault when the power gets shut off, and he overhears this transmission on the radio between the heist team. Things aren't going to go well in a second here. Now, the eye overhead certainly starts get going. It fully starts, and it's fully underway, and it is some of the most magic and majestic pieces of visual cinematography that I have seen in a while. And I just want to give a great bravo to the team at Lucasfilm for putting that together. That is just really spectacular, and I hope you had a great experience at home too, just kind of enjoying this ride. I certainly have. It's been a great episode to this point. It only just really gets better as the action really starts to take place too. Lieutenant Gorn eventually joins in on the activity in the vault, and I love how he's so defiant in his response to Commandant J-Hold when he sees that he's conspiring with the heist team. He says, "quote unquote," "you'll hang for this." And Lieutenant Gorn quips back, 7 years serving you? I deserve worse than that. Now, he's certainly a person that has made up. He's how do I say this right? He's accepted his responsibility for the actions that he's undertaken and his role in the Empire and for what he's done to these people. And he's ready to make amends for the wrongs that he's done and believes that this effort is his opportunity to do so. Now we get to hear, or actually not get to hear exactly, but we get to see these TIE fighter pilots get into their ships, right, as they're kind of alerted to this activity that has taken place on the dam from the kind of the hangar that is nearby. And with the eye in the background, that is wild too. Very cool imagery here. Now, I told you again, things are going to eventually go wrong. Despite Lieutenant Gorn's best diversion, Kisme and the troops do discover the group and see through his lies. Commander J-Hold also has he suffers a clear heart attack, ladies and gentlemen, from doing too much hard physical activity, and that was enough to give it away. I mean, he would never be doing this under any other auspicious circumstances, so it was a clear giveaway. The ensuing fight is frankly some of the best action in the series, in my opinion. Nemec eventually saves Cassian's life as he's involved in this hand-to-hand combat. And unfortunately, the group does lose Terramin and Lieutenant Gorn during this action, as they barely get that ship out into the air with enough payroll to make it worth their while. Now, in the thruster force to escape from the vault, unfortunately, too, the payroll does land directly back on Nemec, and it crushes him, right? It's terrible. He loses the ability of his legs, and I'm sure that he's going to go... He's probably got so much internal bleeding going on. And, I mean, despite Vel's best efforts to give him some stim pack morphine-esque thing, I'm sure he's just in a tremendous amount of physical agony at this point. TIE fighters start to catch up to them, and it's really not looking good. But somehow, amidst all of that pain, the real hero of the day, Nemec, pulls through and gives Cassian the flight directions he needs in order to both escape both the TIE fighters and the Eye. And this sequence is just incredibly beautiful too. The mix of the visuals and the score is just breathtaking amidst the incredible teamwork that this group has put together in order to pull off this heist. It's really inspiring and passionate when you understand and think through what this means for the overall rebellion and how we see it become what we eventually find in Rogue One and A New Hope. Now, Cassian essentially makes a choice for the team once they escape the Eye that they can either continue on with the mission and dump Nemec, or they can go to the doctor that they had a part of their contingency plan and see if they can save his life. And Cassian says, "We're going to do it." And he says, "Give me the coordinates, we're going to go." Now, I like this move by Cassian. It shows that he has come to form some type of empathetic and sympathetic bond with this group over the last few days. Now, I know Cassian, over the course of these 6 episodes, has tried to have this hard exterior. He tries to say, like, I'm a lone wolf. I don't need a team. I don't believe in the cause per se. I just don't like the Empire. But I'm not going to join like a suicide thing like this. I don't have any love for them. But what you're doing is crazy. That just goes to show that that isn't necessarily the case. And despite how much he wants to be a loner on his own, Cassian, I'm talking about Cassian here, he still cares deeply for others. And it's going to come, I think, more to the forefront after the events of this episode. While Nemec is being operated on, though, Skeen offers Cassian a dark choice. This is certainly really the most tempting moment of the episode, and particularly of the series thus far. He offers Cassian the deal of they can steal the money and leave with the ship, right? Skeen can't fly the ship. Cassian is the only one that can do it. Splitting the earnings between the two of them, or they can continue with the mission. Skeen also shares that, if you recall in the last episode, the Axe Forgets, right? That whole story he shared about his brother, that was a lie. And he's always just been looking out for himself. He is a rebellion of one. It is everyone against him. He sees similarities between himself and Cassian. This is why he offers him this chance. But at the end of the day, Cassian proves him wrong and shoots him down in cold blood before he can make a move on Cassian himself. I mean, who's to say, too, that he wouldn't pull a similar stunt on Cassian later on? Cassian does then share what happened between him and Skeen with Vel. And unfortunately, Cassian does, too, learn that Nemec did not make it through the operation. At the end of the day, Cassian just wants his cut and to be done with this mess. He just wants his credits and he can take his leave. He gives Vel the Kyber crystal to give back to Luthen. And in return, Vel provides him with Nemec's manifesto. Vel shares that Nemec, in his last moments, wanted him to have it. I think that's really interesting. I want to know where that goes with this. That's going to be a very impactful part of the remainder of the series in the last couple of episodes. How does that? I mean, it's purely speculating here, but I would have to imagine that this book, this sacrifice, this moment in time, the words and teachings of Nemec will inspire Cassian to become that great rebel spy leader that we find in Rogue One, a Star Wars story. Very fascinating to see how this plays out over the course of the remainder of the season. So the heist was successful. News gets out slowly but surely about Aldhani and the rebel activity. And you see it from various perspectives here. First, we get the ISB, who has a meeting, and the major wants everyone to basically tighten their grip, put in more reports, say how they're going to overtake this and fight back. And we get a look-see inside the Imperial Senate. That's incredible. This is the first time since Revenge of the Sith that we got to see this again, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, I would never guess that we'd see this again. And I find it interesting that it is so hollow, right? If you look around Mon Mothma, there's not a lot of people in this once vastly filled Senate chamber, which just goes to show, I mean, it makes sense that the Senate is pretty much just a ceremonial thing without any real power. These are just a bunch of figureheads that are just because of pomp and circumstance, and this semblance that people have power when they don't. It's a means of control. It's how the empire is able to utilize their grip because they think that they elect leaders, but they really don't have any semblance of say or anything. It's really just the emperor and his agents underneath him. But I like the whispers within the Senate chamber. That was wild to hear as news spread and what transpired about these brave rebel heroes. And the episode finally concludes with Luthen, who almost breaks character upon hearing the news and rushes back to goes to the back of his store to express his elation. I mean, that guy has clearly been stressed out over the course of the day, waiting for some type of news. And he can tell that smile on his face is that this story is just beginning, folks. The Empire has shown that they can be beaten. It can be done, and this team of rebels pulled it off. Bravo to the team. Bravo to Susanna White and Dan Gilroy and team. This has been a really fantastic string of episodes, and I can't wait to see where it goes as the remainder of the series takes place. Now, I do have some questions leading into next week that I will look to see if they get answered in some way, shape, or form. Right? What happens to Cinta? We see her walking away from the dam at the end of the episode. She's not a part of Vel's group that is leaving on the ship with the payroll. Right? It's her, Cassian, Skeen, and Nemec. Right there, she's not a part of that, so she's still on Aldhani. What happens to her? Frankly, what happens to Aldhani? I made reference to this earlier in the episode, but does the Empire tighten their grip on there? Does these group of Aldhani pilgrims, right? I hope nothing bad happens to them. I hope they're able to maybe somewhat reclaim some of their ancestral homeland once again. Who knows? We'll have to see if anything of that comes back to pass again. Where does Cassian go next? How will Nemec's sacrifice affect Cassian overall? I think I speculated a little bit about that earlier, but we're going to have to see what really takes place. How does the Empire respond? We've seen a little bit of the ISB reacting, if you will, to the news on Aldhani, so that was pretty interesting. But what will they do in the coming episodes, especially after some of those officers were starting to put together some of the activity pieces of Rebel ongoing actions taking place? So we'll have to see. We'll have to see again, and also, do we see Vel again? She's clearly going to go see Luthen to drop off some credits, some money. She's got to give him back a Kyber crystal, and will they have a conversation about Cassian? Will he go hunt him down again? Who knows? But I can tell you what, everybody, how can I wait a couple more days for this next episode? Andor has just been proven to be quality entertainment television with deep, complex, intellectual Star Wars themes that have been really wonderful to break down each and every week with you all at home. I hope you've been enjoying Andor just as much as I am. I think next week's episode, if I've heard correctly, is the start of kind of a new arc, but also is more of a self-contained episode. So we'll see how that one plays out over the course of the 7 seasons. It won't, not the 7 seasons, but the course of the 7 episodes overall. As far as I understand, it won't be like the 1, 2, 3 beginning, middle, and end structure that both episodes 1 through 3 and 4 through 6 have been. So that'll be neat to see if it changes anything overall. But we'll be back next week with a brand new episode, breaking it all down here for you at Force Ghost Conversations. So be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms: Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok. We'd love to continue the conversation with you all about Andor and all things Star Wars on those sites. Be sure to, if you love this show, tell us, share us with your friends. Talk about it at your workplace. If you know a person that likes Star Wars, we'd love to continue to grow the proverbial seats around the campfire here at Force Ghost Conversations. If you love the show that much and you want to wear a Force Ghost Conversations t-shirt, be sure to do so. We got those on our TeePublic store. You can also find our Willow-inspired t-shirt on there as well, and other coffee mugs, pillows. It's all there. Be sure to check it out. There's a litany of different items available on our store site. Willow's just around the corner too, so I'm very excited about that. Almost at the end of November. So we got a lot of Force Ghost Conversations coming up in the next couple of weeks. So you get ready for all that. We still got some Light and Magic episodes to finish out. Andor is going to be constantly giving us great content. So there's just so much to look forward to in the remainder of the year, ladies and gentlemen. So be sure to join us for the ride here. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Force Ghost Conversations, and we'll be back next week with a brand new episode. So may the Force be with you. Take care.